Started World War II, they used a civilian pilot training. They sent guys to colleges all over the country, and they gave them some time in the J3 to see if they could fly or got airsick or whatever, kind of weed them out there. And then they would send them into a primary training base. That was also their basic training. Now that evolved. World War I was quite a bit different. Now they just sent them out there, and they had to build their own barracks. There wasn't anything over in France when they first got there. And then the student officers came in and took them away from them. But it has been an evolving program. It is the cornerstone of the air arm of this nation. That's where we came from.
I'm encouraged by this project because it's something new that will hopefully draw more people into Carroll County.
That's the whole point.
And, particularly something that bus tours can easily get to and an attraction that will accommodate bus tours. We haven't had anything new in the Eureka Springs area for years. And bus tour business around the country has dropped off considerably in the past 10 to 12 years. And we need something new and fresh and exciting for people to come and do and spend more time in the county.
That's the point. We want to stay at least 2 days.
Yes.
Because you get the overnights.
Would it help with your program if we pass a resolution approving and?
Yeah, that'll give us some more money to work with to continue improving our facilities.
Well, I'm not sure we can give you any money, but we can pass a resolution where we approve museum and encourage people to see it.
Oh, absolutely.
Some publicity.
Anything helps, because it's amazing how many people here have said, "Yes, you do." I know where you are. I haven't been there yet.
Yeah.
Okay, we will be amazed.
Yeah, I've meant to go several times.
We actually have 20,000 square feet of display. Doesn't look it.
I'll come by.
You do that.
You might recognize some of the equipment.
Yeah. Well, that P29 you will definitely recognize. Anyways,
Thanks, sir.
thank you, gentlemen. I greatly
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
Bring a resolution.
For the next month.
Also, it's first of the meeting, I forgot to ask if anybody's got cell phones, we need to turn them off or put them on vibrate. And also, all Quorum Court meetings are being recorded
And broadcast on the internet.
and broadcast on the internet. Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Across the world.
We have no old business today. Under new business, Jamie, would you read the ordinance 8?
Be it enacted by the Quorum Court of the County of Carroll, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance adopting the Carroll County Comprehensive Land Use and Management Plan Code, also known as the Carroll County Land Heritage Preservation Plan. Section 1. The Carroll County Quorum Court recognizes the need for a land use plan to guide the use of public lands and public resources in Carroll County, Arkansas, and to protect the rights of private landowners. Section 2. The land use policy plan is hereby adopted and made a part of this ordinance as though set out word for word to serve as a set of policies that shall provide a general planning framework to remain in effect upon passage of this ordinance. Section 3. This up-to-date land plan and ordinance shall replace the previous land plan, which is Ordinance 1998-02, and upon passage of this ordinance, 1998-2 shall be repealed. Section 4, that due to the importance of adopting this land plan, an emergency is declared to exist, and this ordinance is in full force and effect upon passage.
John isn't here. He sponsored it. I'll move to adopt it. I'm not sure we can justify the emergency part of it, but we should discuss that a little bit, see if...
We need to give a second. Mr. McNeil, second. Okay. Now it's open for discussion.
I just would like to hear other people's opinions on the emergency portion of it. Since John isn't here and it's his ordinance, I don't know what the basis for the emergency is.
Well, I mentioned that last meeting. Different people seem to think there was, but I agree with you.
I think maybe we should amend it and pass it without the emergency portion. I don't really think, unless somebody can explain why we need it, that we can sustain it.
I agree. I'll move to amend to strike Section 4.
And I'll second that.
You need a voice vote on that?
Yes, please. So we're going to take out the emergency and read it 2 more times, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
That was, yeah,
Was
on
on
the
the
amendment.
amendment.
Yes, that was just on the amendment.
Correct. And then would you like me to?
And for Mr. Graham, because I have said here and listened over the years that people get confused. Part of the time people will call for the question or they'll call for the vote. It's the same thing. So if you hear someone call for the question, well, we're fixing to vote on it. And don't care to ask any questions that you have. Because every one of us has had a first meeting sometime or other.
Somebody still do.
Is there any more discussion? Joe?
Larry, I've talked to several people, they're all for this.
Yes.
There's, I think something we need.
Well, like I said, you know, it kind of puts some people off a little bit when you call it a land use plan. And it did me at first, when there's nobody that's any stronger on property rights than I am. But this is to protect property rights, but we are required to use that name. And
It's mandatory.
It's mandatory.
And I've read through the whole thing. I think Dan has and several of us have, and there's no restrictions on private property owners on their land use contained in this that I can find.
And for Mr. Graham's benefit, one thing that this will do, if we have a land use plan, the federal government can still, as you know, come in and kind of do what they want to, but they can't come in and take over some of the land and change the use of it for their own use without at least coming before us first. If we have a plan in place and we know what's happening and we've got a chance maybe to fight it, or without this, they can make changes, you know, designate different areas that's off limits for this or that without ever telling anyone until it's already done. Now that's one of the purposes for it. And,
Chairman, I do have a copy. I made another copy for Mr. Graham if he would like to read through that.
Yes, I said this last month, but it bears repeating only because I think people who work so very hard on that deserve credit in our thanks to Citizens County. That was obviously a lot of work over the years, and it's a really well written document.
I attended a few meetings on it, and there was a lot of work put in on it. And I didn't put very much, but I know that 1 or 2 meetings I was there, that there was a lot of work being put in, and they had a whole lot of meetings.
I went to a couple of meetings, and they were so far ahead of me that I couldn't really completely understand where they were going when I was at the meetings, but they came up with an excellent plan at the end, I thought.
Any more discussion? Vote.
Mr. Blackburn?
Yes.
Mr. Flake?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. McNeely?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Mumma?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mr. Swafford?
Yes. Next order of business is ordinance B.
Be it enacted by the Quorum Court of the County of Carroll, State of Arkansas, an appropriation ordinance to be entitled, an appropriation ordinance to appropriate funds from Road Department carryover to Fund 02, Department 4400, line item 25, fuel, oil, and lubricants, and line item 26, tires and tubes. Now therefore being enacted by the Quorum Court of Carroll County, State of Arkansas, the sum of $80,000 is hereby appropriated from the County Road Department carryover to Fund 02, Department 4400, line item 25, fuel, oil, and lubricants, and the sum of $12,000 is hereby appropriated from County Road Department carryover to Fund 02, Department 4400, line item 26, tire and tubes.
Move to adopt.
Second.
This is what we talked about last month. We gave the sheriff some extra money for gas last month because he'd already driven too many miles to run out of gas. road department has used up their budget money for gas, and apparently they need some more for tires to stew. Part of that is the work we had to do on the old graders to get them ready to turn in. You know, we did that in June, and so there was extra expense. The tires had to be at 50% wear, I think, when we turned them in. And if you go look at our graders, our old graders on the road, I'd be surprised if very many of them had 10% wear left on the tires. So it took a lot of work to get them up to speed. Fortunately, we made enough money on the way we structured the change of lease to cover most of it. But we do need some extra money for fuel and some for tires and tubes in the road department. We knew this was coming.
Any more discussion?
Ron, now, are we just taking one fund to another fund? Is that what we're really doing?
This is money that is in the road department carryover. They have their carryover, and the county general has a carryover. This is out of the road department carryover. That's the reserve money that we keep if we have unbudgeted or budgeted money that isn't spent 1 year, it goes into the carryover. And so we have, how much in this, Cindy, in the road department carryover right now? Close to $1 million?
Budgeted, yes.
Yes. And this is what we use that for, is to cover things like this. And these are expenses we have no control over. We have to have fuel to run our equipment. And with the increase in gas prices since we did the budget, we've just run out of money over there. And we've known it was coming. The sheriff's people keep chasing criminals up and down the highways. We'll have to give him some more gas money before the year's over, I'm afraid. But anyway, we need to give them some money.
And the sheriff wants smooth dirt roads to drive on.
That's
so
right.
That's where the other part is.
Or we got to work on those old vehicles they drive even more.
Any more discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Blackburn?
Yes.
Mr. Flake?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. McNeely?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Mumma?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mr. Swafford?
Yes. Next order of business is item C, resolution.
Be it resolved by the Quorum Court of Carroll County, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled, a resolution authorizing the County Judge of Carroll County, State of Arkansas, to apply for a grant on behalf of Inspiration Point Volunteer Fire Department. Whereas the Quorum Court has determined that Inspiration Point Volunteer Fire Department meets its eligibility requirements necessary to apply for a grant under the Arkansas Rural Fire Protection Grant. And whereas Carroll County has presented plans to apply for a grant to enable Inspiration Point Volunteer Fire Department to build an extension to the fire station to protect life, property, and the environment from the threat of fires and disasters alike. And whereas the Quorum Court of Carroll County, State of Arkansas, recognizes the need for the project, concurs in its importance, and supports Inspiration Point Volunteer Fire Department in its efforts to proceed with the same. And therefore be it resolved that the County Judge of Carroll County, State of Arkansas, is hereby authorized to submit an application of formal request to the Arkansas Rural Development Commission for the purposes of securing state grant funds in the amount of $35,000 to aid and assist Inspiration Point Volunteer Fire Department in executing the proposed project described herein, and that the County Judge of Carroll County, State of Arkansas, is further authorized to administer the grant funds for the same project.
Jack's not here, but he talked about this at the last meeting, so I moved to adopt this.
Second.
Any discussion?